Examples here to show you, and then I've got an array of things that we're going to press into clay and make sprigs from. Basically, you can make a sprig from anything at all that you have. If you can press it into clay, you can make a sprig. So let's get going on this. So let's start with something simple. So I'm going to do this right here. Say you have a pin. Right here is a little like butterfly pin. I press that into clay. So now I have a impression of this little pin that I can then press clay into, and now I will have kind of a mold, right? And from this, I made a pendant. So here's the finished product. So I took an antique butterfly pendant that I have had for years and years and years and pressed this into clay. Made myself a mold. Just press it into your clay, bisque fire it. That's all you have to do. And then I made a pendant from it. So I have this cute little butterfly pendant that I can wear that I made from this. And the fact is now I can make a bunch of these pretty quickly and fairly easily, and they'll all be similar. So if you're selling your jewelry and you want a series, right? If you want to do one line of butterfly pendants, they all could be similar, and you could just change it up with your glazing. But you don't have to use them standalone. You can turn them into appliques that attach to other pottery. So let's see how everybody's doing. I want to catch up on everybody. Happy Wednesday, you all. So good. Everybody's good. All right. So that's one way. Another way you can use them is here. See these handles? So this was a platter I made using GR pottery forms. Here's the back. Everybody always wants the back. And I made a sprig mold. So you can call them sprig molds or sprigs, your choice. The mold is actually this part. The sprig is the thing you get out of the mold. So you have your master object, you have the sprig mold you make, and then you have your sprig. And so here's the handle from this bit of clay right here. And this is the image I used to promote this broadcast. And this was just applied, and this is what we'll be doing later in the private broadcast. We're going to talk about using handles that are sprigs. And here's a piece. Let's do this one on this planter. So I don't know if you can see these ribs right here. These were basically a sprig made from a silicone mold. So it's a little different way, but that's all these are. They're appliques applied onto the surface. So this is another way you can use them. And then the last piece I'm showing, and I have a lot of other pieces that use sprigs, but I didn't want to subject you to like 4 hours of looking at pottery I've made that have sprigs on it, is this piece right here, which is a piece I made for exhibition about 1.5 years ago. And you can see these are actually, they were my aunt's pearls. I had her pearl necklace, which I pressed her pearls into clay. And then I can press clay into this, and now I can make strands of pearls on my piece. And you can see that right there. So I made the pearls and then I attached them. This handle was a sprig. It's actually, do I have it out here? It's this mold here that I made. And we'll talk about what I used to make that in a second. And then in the center is a little swan, and that was my great-grandmother's pin. So this swan pin belonged to my great-gram, and I wanted to make a sprig of it so that I would have it, and here's the sprig. What else is on here? And that's all that's on this one for sprigs. Oh no, down here. I got some other little sprig details right here, and that is actually these little wooden trim pieces that you pick up from your home supply store. You press these into clay and you get fabulous sprigs. This part here is this part right there. And it's just a really great way to get your texture and to get a little sprig. So you just bought a lot of pieces to make sprig molds with. Yay! So let's talk about things you can make sprig molds with. Basically, anything can be a sprig mold. Seashells make great sprig molds. So I believe actually this is the sprig. Here's the seashell I made the sprig from, right there. And I'll show you how to do that. We'll make some of those. Like I was talking about earlier, this butterfly pin. So any kind of pin you can make a sprig from. I was in the military. I was in the Air Force. I was military intelligence. And when you're military intelligence in the Air Force, you get this badge right here. This is our intelligence badge. It has a little key on it. And so I pressed this in the clay, so I have a sprig from that. So I can use this in my own work because it's something that's very meaningful to me. And then other things you can press into clay. Your children's toys. You know, you step on your kids' Legos when you're walking through the house. Snatch those Legos up and press them into clay because you can make sprig molds from Legos and then you can make clay Legos. I don't know what you want to do with a clay Lego, but you might have an idea where you put a clay Lego on something, right? And then acorns, I like to press acorn tops and the bottoms into clay separately, and then you can put them together and make little acorns. So you'll press your top, press your bottom, and then you'll bisque fire them, right? And then you'll press your clay into them, and then you'll attach them back together, and you just made a clay acorn. So you can make two-part molds from this as well. So what else we got? So I think that's what I got for the making. Let's do it. Your husband calls your son Sprig. He's the little sprig, huh? So these sprig molds I started using because I had clay in the studio and I wanted to make molds of things that I had, particularly antique pins and jewelry that belonged to family members. And I didn't want to use silicone because I hadn't used silicone before and I wasn't familiar with it. So I just pressed it into clay and it worked and it's actually a thing, and so I've just been doing it ever since. So you're going to use clay. Any clay will work because we're only bisque firing these. It doesn't matter what clay you have. I've got a bag of clay over here. This is my clay. This is my clay, like, ends. These are all the bits of clay from projects that just get wedged up and chucked in a bag. And so it's just a bag of clay. It doesn't even have to be the same kind of clay. As long as it doesn't even matter. As long as it fires to the same temperature and shrinks, it's good. What's going on? Is my sound not working? Sorry, everybody. I didn't give anybody warning. Oh, why didn't you just tell me? Apparently, we had a little technical mic issue. My arm was brushing it. Kevin wouldn't tell me. He comes up to the side and is doing this at me. You gotta tell me stuff. This isn't like, you know, a secret. So when I move my arm, oh, I saw that. Okay. I'll just move it out there. How's that? Sound better? No rubbing? Kev, will you grab me my nonstick cooking spray? I believe it's over there on the this. You want some of this? Yeah, I know it's gross. It's been in my studio for about 4 or 5 years, the same can of nonstick cooking spray. So when you're pressing something non-porous into clay, it's going to stick. So you need to have a release agent of some sort, and I like to use the nonstick cooking spray. It's easy to get a hold of, and it's easy to work with, and it's non-toxic. So those are all like wins for me. So I'm going to wedge this up quickly. I sound good. Thank you. Yeah. Well, the mic sometimes, there it is, does what it wants, right? I see everybody was like, your mic is rubbing. Look, I can't get away with anything, can I? Let me grab my rolling pin. Did y'all notice the new filming area right here? I kind of previewed it yesterday in my little unboxing from Mako, but I'm actually filming in it now. And there's going to be some more changes. I've got some things to move around. I've got some ideas for where I can put things, and you all have given me suggestions. Thank you very much. And I'll be doing more stuff as we go on. I'll be changing some things around. I think we're gonna switch our camera so that I can give you guys the tutorial view.
The whole flip or the screen?
I think the whole flip. Do the big screen for what I'm doing down here on the table, so you all can see. So this clay is rather soft, and that really makes a difference when you're making sprigs. If you have really dry clay, it's hard to press your things into it. So you're going to want to use a clay that is either just soft by nature, or like I'm using my clay scraps. And like I said, I just take these scraps, I wedge them up, dunk them in water, and then toss them in this bag right here. So I can have access to them and use them, and I don't have to worry about it being good clay or clay that I really care about. So let's start with something smaller. I'm going to put this one aside for a second and grab another bit of clay. So we're just going to roll this up into a ball. We're going to do the seashell first. So a couple things to think about when you're making a sprig is you want to make sure the clay is big enough, right, to fit whatever you're pressing into it, but also that it's thick enough. Because if you look how thick this is, to get a full impression, I have to press this all the way down to here. It would work. It might come out the bottom. We should be okay with this much clay. But if you need more clay, just you know, start over and save this for something smaller. Like I can put the swan in that one and it would work great. So you like the olive oil cooking spray. It will not leave residue on your silicone molds. Good to know. This one is canola spray, is that one I have right there. So this will work for our seashell. I have a big seashell. Ooh, that's a bigger one. Let's do the bigger seashell. And all I do is I spray the object. I'm going to come over here and do it with the nonstick cooking spray. And then you just press straight down into your clay. And then pop it out. And there we have a sprig. A perfect seashell sprig. And once this has dried and been bisque fired, I will then have something similar to this. Now before I actually fire it, so we'll move this onto a little board for, you know, just saving space. And what I will do is I go in and I'm going to trim this because this clay here can be used to make more. So I'll trim this all away. And if they're really, really thick bits of clay, you might want to put some holes in it so that it can dry, and as it's firing, it'll help it go a little faster. As I did, let's see, can you see these little holes right here? It's got these teeny weeny little holes. I just used my needle tool and poked holes in it all the way around. And that just helps let some air get in there and help the sprig dry a little faster. It takes about a week or two for these to dry if you put them in the sunshine. Just keep in mind if you put them in the sun, which I did the other day, because I have some that I need for a project, it can crack. So because they're under a lot of stress when you make the sprig, when you press down into the clay, when you rush drying it, it could potentially crack. Now, I like to tap my edges to round them over because this could be really sharp. So we just take care of that, just like that. And then I'm just going to sit this off to the side, and that can be drying. So that was that seashell. Let's do my Graham's Swan pendant right here. So I've pressed this in clay quite a few times. I'm actually at the point where I need to stop pressing it into clay because the little swan itself is starting to have some wear. And you know, the thing is when you use something that's an heirloom, whether it's of any kind of monetary value or not, it doesn't really matter. This has a lot of sentimental value for me. So I would like to keep this object. I don't want to ruin it, but I do want to get another impression. So here's the one I do have. I'm going to do another one and then I'll retire this. So that means these will be limited edition. Anything with one of my great-grandmother's swans on it, there's only going to be so many, and that's it. Now, I can use this to make a sprig from, but it will be smaller than the original. So as you make a sprig from a sprig, they get smaller. So I'm going to spray this with nonstick cooking spray. And then press it in. Try to keep it nice and level as you press it down in. And for the little head, I'm going to use the back of my clay knife and press evenly because I don't want to snap or break this. But I want to get this in just like that. And then I'm going to pull it out carefully. There. So now I have the little swan. Actually, I think this impression was better than the other one I did. So I've got another one of these, and this object here I will take in the house, clean it up, and it won't be used in the studio anymore because I don't want to lose it. But at least I have this of it, and now I can make copies of it. And if I wanted to make a swan pendant, or I wanted to put swans on mugs or on any object at all, like I did with this piece here with that swan on it, you know, I put it there as a centerpiece. Let's press some wooden stuff in. So we used a seashell, an organic object, right? So you can press seashells in. We used I'm not sure what this swan's made of. I think it's like plastic, some sort of a plastic resiny material. I don't know. I don't even know how old it is. I don't think it was really fancy, and I don't think it's very valuable, but it was my great-grand's, so that's all that matters. So to me, it's priceless. So with this one, we're going to do a wooden one, and I'm just going to roll my clay flat. So I want a nice flat surface here. And these, I love these right here for making sprigs. Like I was saying, these are in your home improvement stores, and they're in the aisle where they keep the molding, like the wooden trim. And you press them into clay, and then when they're done, you bisque fire them, and then you can make sprigs. So here's one I did a while ago. This piece I pressed into this right here, and now I have this really great, gorgeous sprig that I've used to make handles. I've used to make handles for mugs. I've used to make decorative elements for the side of mugs. You can put these on planters. You can put them on anything. So let's go ahead and do a wooden one. What about using air dry clay to make a duplicate sprig? You could use an air dry clay. I believe it shrinks a tiny bit, but not as much as a regular. But the thing is, can it withhold the pressure of being pressed into the clay? That would be the big question. So for something like this was really long. You can kind of tell I actually cut some of it off. I cut this part off the other side. So for longer pieces like this, often I'll cut them down, and then I can press them in just as individual components, and then I can make sprigs, and if I need to assemble them and put them back together, I can do that. But it's just easier than trying to press this really long piece into clay. So we're just going to line this up. Let me spray it with non-stick spray. Line that up. I'm only pressing this part. That's all I care about right now. And you can use a rolling pin. You can use your fingers. I like to use a rolling pin to get things started. And then often I will go in and just press it down in. And I want to press it till you can see the clay come up over the side. And so you kind of go back and forth a little bit, pressing it down. Then we'll pop it out. Look at that. So the main thing I wanted is this part right here. And for the center, if I wanted that to be a sprig, I would press that in again separately. I'm going to come to here and to here. So this is what my sprig would be, that bit right here, just like that. So again, that's the making part, but then using them to actually make a piece. So let's go to the next step. So we've pressed our object into our sprig, into our clay to make our sprig mold, and now we have to let this dry, and then you bisque fire this, and when that comes out, you end up with something like this, something like this, something like this. So you end up with a mold that you can then press your clay into, and depending on what you have a mold of, you can do it a couple different ways. So the bee mix I'm using right now, I see there's a question what bee mix I'm using. I'm using, well, I use both, but currently I'm just using the cone 5 version because I'm firing to cone 5. So that's the version I'm using for my electric kiln. So for these little sprigs, when they're small like this, you take a little bit of clay, like to roll it into a ball, and then you're going to take your sprig, line your ball of clay up, and just press it in. Nice even pressing, and then I turn it over and then pop it out. So here I have a perfect little swan, and then depending on what you want to do with this, sometimes I will use a cookie cutter, and if I have a little oval, I will cut an oval shape out, and that way I have the swan on the little oval as the background. Sometimes, there's my towel. Sometimes I'll just cut right around the swan itself so that I get a really small sprig. So we'll just cut this out. There. So now you've got this little clay applique, little clay sticker, right? And if you wanted to, if you had a cup, like say this wasn't a finished cup, right? Say this was a this was a leather hard cup that needed something put on it. Oh, do I have one? Kev, what do I have back there? It's leather hard. Maybe one of those square planters. If you that plastic right there, that's down. Open that plastic up, and give me the mug on the right. We're gonna stick it on a mug. We're gonna put the swan on a mug. How to make a 1" by 1" plaid stamp. So with a plaid, because it's the cross, you would do more of a like a checker pattern, but you can't really do a straight plaid to get the weave. It doesn't quite come across. You could do silicone molds though. You could do a silicone weave that way. So here's a mug I made. This is actually an extruded mug, and it's a little dry. It's a little drier than I'd like for this. I'm going to stick it on. It's probably not going to stay because the piece is not, it's not ready for it. Oh, hey, you want to grab my my slip and my serrated rib? You can't stick things on if you don't have slip and serrated rib. I like to stick sprigs back here at the handle. Just really like putting them there. You can also use polymer clay. You can use polymer clay. So my only caution for everybody with polymer clay is it tends to be a little more brittle and break under pressure. So if you're making a sprig that is made of polymer clay and you're pressing a lot of clay into that sprig, you could potentially break it. So just keep that in mind. But they will work. And just like these are bisques, so they're brittle as well. So you want to make sure it's nice and flat when you're pressing onto it. So we're going to put this little swan here. My swan mug, we're going to put it right there. And then I'm going to pull this off, and I'll slip and score. Really getting in there. And then we'll put the little swan on, and then just pressing it in with my finger. Let me grab one of these little clay shapers, color shapers, and then I'm just going to go around and remove any excess slip and smooth this out. So ideally, if you're going to add these to your pieces, you want the pieces to be wetter than I have this mug right now. And I'm almost guaranteeing that this will pop off and not stay because it's dried way too much. But for demo purposes, we're putting it on there. But look how cute that is. Now I have a sprig, a little swan mug. Cute, right? Do you have to spray the sprig when pressing pressing the clay? No, not with a bisque one. You do not, because the bisque clay, and we're going to press one in. And as I just did with that swan, you saw it released really easily. The bisque clay is porous, and it just naturally releases. It's the nature of the clay. All right, so let's wedge this up quickly, and we will use this to make this one here. We could stick that on too. It'll pop off as well, but we could stick it on. Doesn't matter, right? Can you make sprigs from plants? If your plant, all right, so yes, this technique here, you have to have something that can be pressed into clay and survive. So for making a sprig from plants, you'll kind of want to make a silicone mold using silicone instead. And you'll do a poured silicone mold, which is a different technique. This is a bisque mold sprig. So I'm rolling my clay out. And now we're going to press it into this seashell one here. I'm going to line this up. And I'm going to roll my rolling pin right across it. And then we'll pop it off. Look at that. That's awesome. This is one of my favorites to do. And this was just a little wooden bit that I got from the home supply store and pressed it into clay. So now I have this like fan, sort of seashell-y fan creation. And we'll just cut it out from the excess clay. And then you just wedge this clay up and use it again. You just keep using these over and over until, you know, you used up all your clay. Now, if I let this piece dry that I just pressed out, I could use this as a stamp. So if you are buying wooden objects that you want to use to press into clay, but you're finding the wood over time is getting saturated with water, and so it's becoming weaker and it's cracking, you can go ahead and make a sprig of that wooden object and then press it in, like I just did here, and this here could become a stamp. So we have this, and you can use this as a handle. You can use this as an applique that you just stick on the side. So if I wanted to put this on the side, this is way too thick for this application, but you get the idea, right? You could totally stick sprigs on your mugs. I like to take these. I actually use these to make little planters. So they actually look like this, and I put a slab on the back, and it creates this fabulous little planter. But this right here, this handle is actually one of these that I did, and I just curled the top down. So it's another way that you can do it. What else are we gonna do? Oh, let's do, what else we got over here? I'm just looking, let's do the butterfly. So for a pendant. So it'd be the same as the swan if you were gonna make something that you're gonna use as a pendant. So a couple little things I've got, little tricks I've got for you guys. You wanna smooth the surface out if you're going to make a pendant. If you have a piece of clay, well, we'll do both, so I'll show you the what not to do, and then I'll show you the what to do. So here's a little ball of clay, right? And I balled it up. Looks great, right? Press it in. Going to make our butterfly pendant. Pressing it in, and then you pull it out. And I don't know if you can see, but if you look really closely, the way I had that ball rolled, it wasn't smooth. It had some little areas where the clay wasn't cracked, but it wasn't joined together. And those come out. So to avoid that, you want to make sure the piece of clay you're using, the front is nice and smooth. And that's just taking a couple minutes. It's like a little housekeeping here. Take a few minutes, and then I'm going to press this in. And I'm just using my thumbs to press it in. And then I'll turn it over, and I press it on the board, and the pressing on the board flattens the back. The sprig that I'm using is the same clay that I'm attaching it to, right? So the mug that I made is with Laguna B-Mix 5 with no grog. And the sprigs I'm making now, the clay I'm using for these sprigs is also Laguna B-Mix with no grog. So you do want to make sure that whatever you're attaching your sprig onto doesn't have to be the same clay. They have to have the same shrink rate and firing temperature. That's all. As long as they do have those things in common, you can mix and match. So you could use a black clay or a dark clay if it matched the other clay that you're putting it onto. And so here we have our little butterfly that we'd smoothed out. So now we have, it's perfect, absolutely perfect. Whereas this one here, we've got a little crack here. So we don't have that on this one. So we can cut this out. And little things like this, since this was a pendant, I really like the idea of it going forward and being a pendant again. So if you have antique jewelry, this is a great way to kind of bring it back to life, right? All right, so Michelle says, if you use super Sculpey polymer clay and bake it, it will become almost rock hard. So super Sculpey clay, you can try and see if that works for you. How does the Sculpey release? Is it a good release? being a polymer clay that is non-porous, I'm thinking you would probably have some issues getting the clay to release, but maybe not. So this released really easy. Do you see how it just popped right out? And this could be a pendant pretty quickly. I would just soften the edges, just like that, and there you go. And then you fire it. I mean, you can clean up things, little detail things, and work on it for a minute if you need to, but you can see if you make jewelry or you want to try making jewelry, this is an easy way to make your shapes. And again, this could be attached to another piece. Now, if we're going to do the stickers, so say we're going to make them really thin like a sticker, let's do another butterfly. Same thing as we did before, except you want the clay to be thinner. You don't need it to be a big, thick lump of clay. Can I shift the board? It's not shifting the board as much as shifting the camera. Let me see if I can get the camera to come back a bit more. Nope. That's it, everybody. We gotta go with this one tonight. I'll just lean in further for everyone. So I'm smoothing this out. So this would be making a clay sticker. This is more when you want something thin. And then we're going to press it in. And it's okay if it's not flat. Meaning we have it as it's concave here. And then we have this, and it's much thinner, so it would attach easy to another piece. The handle on the mug, is it extruded? It is. This was me using my extruder. I extruded the mug and I extruded the handle. That is for some upcoming extruding classes that I'm working on for you all. But usually my handles are pulled, but this one I decided to give extruding a handle a pull, because you pull through the extruder. So I try. Anyhow. So how do you make sprigs with initials to sign a piece? So that is not a sprig, that is a stamp, Robin. Now, it's a little different, and I do have a making a stamp class. I believe bisque stamp class. Is that a free one? I can't remember if that's one of our free classes or not. But in that I show how to make a bisque stamp that you can use just as a stamp, or for signing your initials, and it's a little different process, and I don't have them prepared because you have to let the clay sit before you carve it, and I don't have any clay ready for that, so I can't just whip one together. But we could do a making your own stamps. We could do a making your own stamps tutorial one night. I've done it before. Now, if you had something you made a sprig of that you wanted as your signature, so say I wanted the swan to be my my stamped signature. I mean, it could be. It completely could be if I wanted it to. You would just want to make it a little different. Let me roll this into more of a stamp-like shape, right? And then we're going to press this in. And I'm actually pressing it in to make a handle on it. I'll pop it out. And now I have my swan with a handle, and I can go in and trim away what I don't want. So I've just made a stamp. How fast was that? With a built-in handle. Like super fast. Could do it for the butterfly too. So you just want to make sure that when you're rolling it out, that it's nice and smooth wherever the front is going to be, right? So I'm just going to smooth that out. And this is going to be to make a stamp, so this will have to go and be bisque fired before I can use it. I'm going to press that in. So it's a little messy, but we'll clean up the edges later. Make our handle. All right, let's turn it over and see how we did. We got our butterfly and we got our handles. So what I will do now is I will trim the butterfly so that all I have is the actual butterfly and I've got the built-in handle. You could make it this way and attach a separate handle later. Not too much later, because if you wait too long, it'll be too dry to add a handle to, but you could totally do it that way. So I have, oh my gosh, I don't know how many sprigs that I've made over the years. Many, many, many. I never know what I'm going to do with something, but if I'm out and, you know, I like to go to antique shops, I like to go to flea markets, and I like to see what they have, and I particularly like, you know, checking out jewelry. So, you know, I might always find a little treasure and you bring it home, and first thing I do is put it in clay. And sometimes I'll bring stuff home and my daughter will be like, she's like, oh, I love that. And she's like, you're going to put it in clay, aren't you? And I'm like, yep. And she's not happy about it because she wants it, right? And I'm like, it'll be fine. I'll give it to you after I'm done. But first, Mama's got to press it in the clay. So I'm just smoothing out this. But it made a perfect stamp that I can now use. And once it's dry, you know, I've got that handle. So I can get a hold of this and I can really press that into things over and over. So now I've got a new tool. So it's not, you know, I can use it multiple times. There was something else. What was the other thing I just thought of I wanted to share with you all? Oh, cool things. Okay, other cool things. This one, I love this sprig I made. This is actually in porcelain because I had scrap porcelain that day and I decided to use it to make a sprig. But this was an antique belt buckle, this one right here. So it's just an old little belt. So Christine, you want it proud, not indented. So you can make it either way. You can have an object that is proud or you can have it indented. It just depends. Like, you know, here we have something that is sitting proud. Here we have something indented. You could use both of these as a way to stamp your work. You could if you wanted to. And if you wanted to press this into your clay and make an indentation, you could do that too. So you could have both going on the same piece, and that would be really cool. So let me show you this one. This was a flea market find. Somebody had a basket of things that were like 25 cents a piece, and it was this old belt buckle that was just a kind of looking pretty tarnished and rough, and immediately I was like, the design is so pretty, I just was drawn to it. And I don't think I've actually put this on anything yet. Can you attach sprigs to slip cast mugs? You can, but you have to be careful because sometimes the sprigs want to pop off slip cast mugs because they might shrink at different rates. So you have to be aware of what rate that clay is shrinking. But you can do it. I have slip cast things and I've attached stuff to them. I have slip cast things and attached the slip cast things to other pieces that weren't slip cast, to wheel thrown forms. So you can do it. It's all about letting things dry really slow and evenly. How do I glaze fire my pendants? So look at this. Look how beautiful that turned out. I've got to bring it up. You guys have to see this. See if the camera will focus on it. Focus on this right here. Nope, it won't. I don't know why. If I put my face in there, it would focus in a second. It would be like, yes, but I don't want to put my face there. There we go. Yay. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? All right, we're coming back down here. We'll be back down here. Okay. So how do I fire the pendants? It depends on what I plan to use for the hanging. This one here, I knew I was going to put this bail on it. This is called a bail. And it's just a little thing that I epoxy on after. And because I knew I was doing that, I fired it on stilts. So this is glazed front and back, and I fired it on stilts in the kiln. And then I put mother of pearl on top and fired it again, and on the stilts again. And then when it was done, I epoxied the bail on it, and I did sand down where the stilt was, because you can see, I don't know if you're able to make it out, but there's 3 little dots right there from the stilts. So that's one way to do it. Now, if I use a piece of nichrome wire and I attach that to it in the making, then usually I will hang it from a bead holder. And so then I can glaze the entire thing, and it will go ahead and, there we go. And then if I do it that way, I glaze the entire thing and just hang it from that nichrome wire. Just depends. So this right here was fired on a stilt, and I used the bail after for this one. And I do that a lot, actually. I don't mind using the stilts. I actually like it. Oh, we're gonna make a sprig from the Lego. We have to make a Lego sprig. Have to. Let me grab some clay for that. And we'll get that ready. So you have to make sure it's thick enough. All right, so those of you on the Prime broadcast, it won't start automatically, but if you click on the browse link or explore in one of the apps, it'll be listed at the top feature area, and so it should be huge, and you shouldn't be able to miss it.
Right at the top of the page,
Okay.
it'll be massive.
So we have a chunk of clay, a little chunk of clay. We have one of my children's Legos that I went and dug out of the bin that was packed away. And I will tell you, if you're going to press Legos into clay, don't ever press just one Lego. Stack them together, because it's really hard to get Legos out of clay. So we want to make sure we have a way to get these out. My kids do not watch my broadcasts. My kids aren't even on social media. So they have no idea I'm doing this to their Legos. None whatsoever. They'll never know. Never, ever. Unless I tell them. So I could do whatever I want with this. They won't know. I get away with all kinds of stuff. So let's press this down in. And I'm just going to squeeze the clay around it a bit to keep that Lego brick shape. And then my hands are now really slippery from using the nonstick cooking spray, and the Lego's really sticky from the nonstick cooking spray. But it worked. There it is. We have Lego. So we have a little Lego brick. And, you know, in my work, I can't imagine I would use a Lego, but I bet some of you out there think, I could use a Lego, or it doesn't have to be Legos. Go ransack through your children's or grandchildren's toys. If you can press it into clay, if you think it's cute and you like it, if you can press it into clay, you can make a sprig from it. And then you can use it on whatever you want. And then you can give it back to them. I won't tell. They'll never know. Just clean it off, stick it back in. Nobody will be the wiser. No one will know at all. There we go. So I'm just going to let this dry. Now, once this gets leather hard, you see how thick and chunky it is? I don't really want to fire it as thick as it is. That's more clay than we really need. So I will go in, and I'm not going to cut it now because it's really wet. If I cut it now, I can distort it. So I'll wait, but I'm just like making a trace mark where I want to cut it right there. So I will go in all the areas that I just drew those lines around, I'll go ahead and I will cut the clay off of that so it won't be this thick. And that will let it dry faster and make it so I can use it sooner. And there's no need to use that clay anyways. What else we got over here? I got some other stuff over here. This was an interesting one. Oh, here's the acorn bottom. I can't find my acorn top right now, but acorn bottoms. Acorn bottoms make great feet. If you're looking for a really simple way to make a foot for a pot, press an acorn bottom or top into clay and you can make the cutest little mold for feet. Make Lego mugs for kids, right, Sherry? That's a brilliant idea. So if you have kids in your life and you want to make something that they will think you're the coolest person ever, make some Lego sprigs, then you can make some Lego mugs. Because you can stick the Legos on it. And I used a 6 brick, but you know, there's the little 2s, there's the 4s. So you could do a bunch with all the different shapes. You could do some 1s. I don't have an 8. I have this. But look, my child built something. I can't tear it apart. I feel like it would be wrong for me to tear this apart. I could press this in clay though, and I would have this shape, but I have no need. I don't know what I'd do with it, but it's kind of cool. So anyhow, Legos are fun. I've pressed my kids' little plastic animals in clay. I've pressed little dolls in clay. I've used some of their die-cast toys. You know, if they have any die-cast metal toys, you can press those in the clay. Lots of things. Pretty much anything can go into clay. So we're going to press this. So I'm shaping it, and now I'm going to press it in. And then we'll pop it out. And look at that. It's actually the bottom of an acorn. So you can kind of see it right there. And I will cut it off like this and let it set. And you can make 3 more because, you know, when we do feet, 3 is usually what we go for because a tripod's always stable. Although you can do 4, and I often do 4. Just depends. The speedball colors, the new speedball colors would be great for the Legos. Your 4-year-old grandson's watching and he said he's done this before. He's awesome. And you know, you should have him make pottery with you because he can make little Lego pieces and make Lego pottery. That would be awesome. Diana says it makes her want to dig in her grandchild's toy box. Right? Yes. Lego people sprigs. Exactly, Deb. So if you have a Lego person, press them face down into the clay. It's okay. The Lego people don't mind if you press them into clay. And then you can use them to make a Lego people sprig. So I've got 3 feet right here, and they all are the same size. So if you struggle with making little feet, this is a great way to do it. And it doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be this. You know, let me just grab, it's not as big as I want it to be. I mean, look, this is the handle of a throwing stick right here. Say you love this. Say you love this little squared off shape and you're like, that would be the best foot ever. I want that to be my feet on my pottery. It can be. Let's prep up a little clay ball. And we're going to press that in. And you can make it as deep as you want. It just depends how much clay you have to press it into. So I'm just making a little cube here. This is wooden. I shouldn't have to spray it to get it to release. We're going to find out. It is sealed with something, so let's press that in. It's a little sticky, but it came out. So now I have this cool shape, that's this shape right here, in clay. So that would make a great foot. I'm saving this. I'm going to be firing this as soon as it's dry. And now I have a new foot shape. But I just was reaching over here in all my tools. Oh, we got this. What about the end of, this is one of the Sandbow Studios rolling texture rollers, right? That looks cool. I don't know if the texture will translate or not. Might not, but we can give it a go and we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm just going to try to flatten this off. Sprig mold of a doll foot, right, Betsy? That would be cool. And you could put doll feet on your pots. So a sprig mold of a foot for your feet. Why not? Let's try this. So that's a nice shape. The texture didn't really translate, but it still gave me this nice shape here. Now seashells. Where's my seashell sprig? Let's do a seashell. Seashells make great feet. They are fun, and on planters, they're kind of quirky, and I really like seashells as a foot. So got some clay right here. I know, so many ideas, right, Christine? So many ideas. This is what happens when you get into the studio. You start playing with stuff, and the next thing you know, you've made so many things, and then you've got all these ideas in your head and this inspiration, and you can't wait to try it all out. And that's what I'm hoping you're getting from this. So I see someone's asking, do I read the comments? I do read the comments, but you all know I have 4 streams going, 4 live streams. That means 4 places people are commenting, and I have to try to read all of those. And we get hundreds of comments per broadcast on each stream. So keeping up with them can be a little, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So I try to get to your question. If you've asked me a question, you know, and I didn't answer it directly, ask again. If I don't get to it, maybe Kevin will see it and he can type the answer, or he will bring it to my attention and I will get to it. So here's that little seashell that we made. Look how cute and quirky that could be. Now, you could use that as a foot. Could stand it this way as a foot. You could have it this way. And your pot could be sitting on the seashell, right? So imagine you've got the seashell as your foot. And you could put it this way too, if you want it sitting on the seashell. I wouldn't put it on a mug, but you can put it on anything you want. I would probably put it on a planter. Anything that requires a foot. Or you love seashells. You want to do a seashell motif mug or a plate or a platter. Go for it. Press a bunch of seashells, get a whole bunch of seashells, press them into clay, and then make your clay seashells. And then you can put it on anything. And this could be a pendant too. This could be a really pretty seashell pendant, this one. Paint it like a real seashell and away you go. Oh, I see Michelle has a great suggestion. Ornate drawer pulls make great stamps and texture. And Hobby Lobby has them, or antique stores. Exactly, they do. Like I use that. This was a belt buckle. This one was a ring, and this was an earring from when I was in high school. This right here. I had a pair of these earrings in high school. I have one currently. Actually, I don't have any. I lost that earring. But before I lost the earring, I made a sprig. So I have my high school self's earring that is probably back in style again today. I could go ahead and make a pair and wear them. So you've made homemade clay, but when you use it, it creates little cracks on the edges. So your clay is not plastic enough. A lot of times with clay we dig out of the ground, it might have, it might have some things that are really good in it, but it might not have everything you need to make a good clay body. So it sounds like your clay is not plastic enough. It's also called the clay that is short because it breaks easy, so it's a short clay. You can use it for some applications, but for most things it's going to be difficult to work with. But if you're interested in harvesting wild clay, there's a bunch of people out there that do that, and they have techniques and suggestions for using it if that's something you want to do. I've done it a few times, but I really rely on commercial clay now because I know I'm going to get good results every time. But I think it's cool to kind of experiment with the clays around you and get to see what they are like and the properties of them. So here's my earring from high school. There we go. Look at that. I could make a pair of these. What do y'all think? Could be wearing those. And then was there something else I was going to press into clay? Can't remember. Oh, this one. So this was a ring I found at a flea market, and I pressed just the face of the ring in, and I got a sprig from it. So now I can make, it's a little owl. So now I can make little owl sprigs to do whatever I want with. All right, Terry, you used a tiny pine cone to make a sprig. You can't wait to use it as feet on a box. Pine cones would be great. Pine cones would be great. I tell you, if you can press it in the clay, you can make a sprig from it. And I know there's many other materials you can use. This is just how to use your own clay in your studio and bisque them. That's all. I know there's lots and lots of other ways to do this, but this is just one way that I'm showing you. And just to give you some ideas, you know, you might be sitting in your studio and you might look over at your tools and you might like the handle that you've got, the end of your handle. So you can go ahead and, you know, say, hey, I want to make feet from that, and press that in the clay. So here I have this little owl. Oh, he's cute. And I could turn that into a pendant for my mom because she loves owls. All right, so there we have it. Wow, we made sprigs, and I showed you how to use sprigs, and we talked about firing the sprigs and attaching them. So here's that swan attached to this mug right here. And I don't know, that might survive. We'll see. I'll cover it up. If it makes it through the night without cracking, I will leave it on there. We'll see. All right, so a couple things I want to remind you of is we are doing a Mako glaze giveaway. I've got it right back here, the thing we're giving away. It is this stoneware glaze kit, 8 glazes, 4 ounces of each. 8 times 4 is 32. We get to do some math. So you're getting 32 ounces of glaze. We're giving away 4 of them. Thank you, Mako, for sponsoring this. We also have a really great deal. We're partnering with Clayscapes Pottery for the month of July, where if you want to buy any of the Mako glazes, you can go there and use the code EXPLORE10 and save 25% off retail price. Woohoo! So that's what I got for you all. The drawing for the winners will be on the 29th. To win, or to be entered to win, all you have to do is sign up for our emails. If you're a premium member of clayshare.com, you're already signed up. You don't have to worry about anything at all. And Mako has been very generous with these, and they're willing to ship these out, but only in the U.S. So if you're outside the U.S., I'm sorry, but if you're in the U.S., you are totally in. And so I've got one more question. An older video, the chopstick rest, you love the rolling pin I used, but it's not one of mine online. I think for the chopstick rest, I made that pattern. Do you remember that one there that I used for it? But I can't remember. So I'll have to go back and review that. Before I was designing my own rolling pins, I was using a few from Suncraft. But they're on Amazon. So check out Suncraft on Amazon, and that'll help you out with that. All right, so that's all I've got. Next, in the private broadcast for premium members.
Yeah, it was one of those.
It was one of those. We're going to be attaching handles to platters because I made some platters. So we're going to do that. And I got an unboxing for you too. All right, everyone, thanks for joining me. I'll be back next week for another Live at 5. You know, as always, follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. Make sure you hit the subscribe on YouTube, but you want the notifications on too, so you know when we go live, so you don't miss that. All right, everyone, take care, and I'll catch you next week. Bye, everybody. Thank you, everybody.